Yeah, if you want to make sure your little red light is on, that would be.
Yeah.
As the first meeting, well, we'll start with the minutes from the last meeting. How about that?
And we have a public hearing and the council meeting.
So the minutes both from the public hearing and from the regular scheduled council meeting.
I move we accept the minutes of the public hearing on March 25th.
Second?
A motion by Ken, seconded by Nate. All those in favor of approving the public hearing meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next are the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting.
I move to approve the minutes for that.
Second.
Motion by Rich and seconded by Ken. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any amendments to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the committee reports. As the first meeting of the month, we'll start with Board of Works and Safety.
We met today. I'm looking at my agenda I made on my notes. First thing, we actually approved 2 street closures, one for the Tipton Main Street for their Friday events on 5/17, 6/21, 7/19. And then we also approved the temporary closure for the Tipton Baseball Parade. It's the same route they take every year. Quick update from the cemetery and parks. As usual stuff at the cemetery, at the parks. The asphalt paving for the basketball courts was actually pushed back to maybe June. I was gonna ask why. I'm gonna push it back. We're putting the new goalposts up soon. She's working on finishing the plaza downtown with all the accessories and things like that. A lot of park maintenance going on, and then we spent a pretty good deal talking about trees. I'll let the mayor probably give a more update as under old business as we talk about appointments to the tree committee. Planning department, Steve wasn't in, but spent quite a bit of time on code enforcement, getting some updates on the red brick, whites, talking about Mike Benjamin's property, and just Judy's doing a lot, and we're just trying to ramp up enforcement there. We have that list that we'll be meeting with her about, has a lot of properties, commercial and residential, that we're targeting to be aggressively proactive with this year. And then we got an update from Mike. Trash truck was in an accident. I didn't know about that. It's going to be back online tomorrow. Then Mike will have everyone with the streets. We'll start with the street sweeper, hiring some temp labor for the summer. Usually those students do curb painting and things like that. Community crossings grant he's been working on, things like that. And that was it.
Thanks, Nathan. Cemetery Board was covered under that report. We'll then move to Park Advisory Board.
The main thing at the Park Advisory Board was the fees at the swimming pool, which are in the packet, and we'll be discussing those a little bit later. The golf course obviously is up and running. Fantastic weather so far, so generating some revenue. Even with all the rain that we had a week ago, the course was only closed 2 days, which I thought was pretty amazing. So anyway, that's it.
Thanks, Ken. Mr. Rippey is absent tonight, who's our liaison for the Utility Board.
Minutes are enclosed.
And the minutes of the board meeting are enclosed. Moving on then to new business, we have some annually required TIF reporting. The city of Tipton does have a few TIF districts that were established actually under the previous administration. We're a little late to the game, but nonetheless, we do have those annual reporting. Do we have anyone here from Reedy Financial? Okay.
I think that report is in.
It is.
It is.
So the convenience of this packet is it's full of a bunch of zeros. So none of the TIF districts at the moment are generating any revenues. But again, it's the state requirement that these reports are presented to the council. We're expecting these will, I believe all of them shall be generating TIF revenue, maybe except for Northgate by next year. So next year we'll see some numbers populate on there, which will facilitate better conversation, questions, and answers. But I would like to seek a motion for approval of this so we can get it filed with the state.
Second.
Motion by Tim, seconded by Nate. All those in favor of approving the RDC reporting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, under old business, as Nate alluded to, appointments to the tree committee. Just for, I guess to start, it is a requirement that this committee is fully formed and staffed, and then it has meeting requirements. And actually, there's a grant that was just published by DNR. It's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. DNR had this grant opportunity last year. They republished it last week, I believe it was. And there's no match requirement to it, which is pretty interesting for the city of Tipton. And as we've explored previous communities who've applied for this, there's some interesting opportunities specifically to do some canopy assessments citywide. With the canopy assessment, it'll help us identify the health of the trees throughout the city. So then the second bucket that we'll potentially add to this project is mitigation. So then if we know the trees are bad, is there some funding available that we can then leverage to mitigate those trees? And then the last bucket, of course, is if we're going to cut them down, to replant them. So we'll start scoping that with the tree committee based on hopefully tonight's appointments to the tree committee. And then I guess in concert with that work, with that grant application, we're actually going to be putting in some trees for the park and golf course. So as we estimate over the last, maybe as little as 5 years, but potentially 10, just because of storm damage at Emerald Ash Borer, we have removed nearly 100 trees from either the park and golf course. So we're going to make a concerted effort through this grant to replant a lot of those, to restore that canopy here in the city of Tipton, but then also maybe there's some citizen resident component to it that we can add as well. So with all that said, I just wanted to bring back up that we have Sadie Lundy, whose term did expire at the end of last year, and then Robert Myers had expressed interest. So with those two, that would help give us the minimum 5-member board committee to satisfy the requirements of the committee, but then also begin working on creating this project plan in conjunction with Diana Tomlinson and Ryan Bontrager with the golf course and
So-
Phil Beaver.
Didn't we appoint Rob?
We talked about, was Tammy and I looked, we couldn't find where we ever motioned and seconded them to actually be members of the committee.
So who are the other members?
They are, so I'm still on there until the end of this year, I think. Diana's term actually expires at the end of this year. So we'll add Sadie and Robert to give us 4,
Mike
and
is-
Bill.
Is still on there.
and Bill Henderson is still on there. So we need a minimum of 5, but it can go up to 7.
But that would give us 6 if we put Sadie.
Correct.
on, so.
Yep.
I'd motion that we put Sadie and Lundy and Rob Myers on the tree committee. These are council appointments, by the way.
Correct.
Second.
Motion by Nate and seconded by Tim to nominate Sadie Lundy and Robert Myers to the tree committee. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
For the council's knowledge, we talked about the Board of Works that this may include, or hopefully will include, some downtown trees. We've cut a lot down from the downtown as well. Or there are trees in our downtown that are either too big or probably shouldn't be there any longer. So we want to add those two.
Next on the agenda is mayor's report. I have a few things, not as much as usual. Starting with the baseball renovation project, the last piece we're working on is a civil engineering for that. We did explore some drainage tile for that facility, but then of course, as we've learned, there's a former dump site underneath it all. And anecdotally, we are told that the debris from that landfill was as little as 8 to 12 inches beneath topsoil. We actually had somebody out to dig some test holes so we could see and verify that. Turns out that was true. So this will make the civil engineering even more important to make sure that when we do have water landing on the facility, that it's being shed in the appropriate places. So we're waiting on that. And then the next step after we receive that information is to secure a contractor to act as the GC to move this project forward. So we're still getting confirmation from those in that space that we could see work completed by the 2025 baseball season. So that's just a status update where we're at the moment. Public safety building, we're having our third meeting with Etika Group tomorrow. We'll actually be discussing some conceptual ideas and options, narrowing down those selections. Our final meeting is on April 24th, and then the council and the stakeholders of the project will then be issued a report that'll be a public report to the community, which will then identify the options moving forward with that facility. Again, the expectation is short term, what do we need to fix today? And then the options moving forward long term is, do we do a renovation in addition to the facility, or do we build a new facility, or some other option that might come out of the next two meetings? We've had some really great conversation, and actually Etika Group has been very complimentary. We've had a lot of participation from police and fire, so that's been good to help inform this project. The last big update was on the LPA project. We had a touch base with Structure Point. Again, the LPA project is the Jefferson Street rebuild that's scheduled for 2028, which will be quite a significant project for the city of Tipton. We're hosting focus groups. This is the first of many, that's my expectation, first of many resident outreach opportunities. So these first initial focus groups are focused on those who are going to touch Jefferson Street. So getting the feedback as those who are going to live with this road more intimately. So there's 3 focus groups, residential, business, and then the third is actually the city department leadership. And these are going to be people who have some relationship. Street department's going to plow the snow. Utilities are going to have utilities running in this area. Police and fire have a facility in this space. So it's going to offer that opportunity to ask questions more focused on those types of questions. And then the last thing I have is the Eclipse update, or rather just a celebration. Yesterday really was quite fantastic. We had not only just the event, I mean, it was really quite breathtaking to see the eclipse, but to have people from Philadelphia, New York, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Illinois, Michigan. It was just fascinating to see those types of visitors come to our community. I checked with the Chief Stout and Assistant Chief Lacey. We had absolutely 0 calls yesterday, which was one of the feedbacks that we heard, or I heard at Mayor's Institute last week. It was one of the complaints coming out of Kentucky when they had an event, was the physical altercations. They even had like dog bites were a top 5 complaint that they had. We didn't experience any of that. Congestion was as expected, but there were no issues and all of it was facilitated quite well. So wanted to give a special thanks to the team who helped plan yesterday's activities that included Jenny Froge from my office, Diana Tomlinson, Mike Terry, Chief Stout, Chief Bittner, Dr. Ryan Glaze, Lane Cameron from R.L. Turner doing work at the school, Lindsay Ogden, Shelley Powell, Adam DeWitt, Jamie Beaver from IU Health, Dan McFalls and Riley Harden. And I just want to give a special thanks to, we had a lot of volunteers yesterday who really helped this event go smoothly. So certainly council members, Tim Richards and Rich Vaughtall, Jenny and Josh Froge, Tammy Clark, Lynn Ramsey, Trisha Borders, Chief Stout, Debbie Frazier, Officer Dalton Money, SRO Dave Maddox, Adam DeWitt, Riley Harden, Dan McFalls, and Kendra Tragister. So I just want to give them a special shout out. Some of us on our feet for a very long duration of time. Some of us are nursing those today, but it was really a cool experience to see the community come together on an event like that.
Our mayor was out there too, helping a lot.
Yes, he was.
Bouncing around.
Because you did not mention that, but he was.
It was good to chat with folks in the park and hear the compliments to the community. So that was really
I don't
great.
think I've ever seen so many vehicles in town.
Yeah, we don't have a formal estimate, but talking with Diana and her crew, they estimate that at any one point they had somewhere close to 1,000 cars that we were trying to facilitate. So even on the low end, we saw a lot of families yesterday. So we at least 3,000 people came and visited Tipton, especially in the park in the school area. So potentially we doubled the city's population yesterday, which is
And to hear,
done.
to hear the cheer.
Yeah.
You had me up in the front of the school and I
Yeah.
was standing up there when it went full eclipse. And the cheer
Yeah.
that come from the park and in front of the ball diamonds and everywhere just escalated through whole town,
Yeah.
it seemed like.
Yeah,
was
really quite
pretty cool.
special. That concludes my report, so we move on to the meat of the meeting. As you can see, resolutions and ordinances. The first on our docket is Resolution 2024-06. It's a resolution transferring to the LPA Grant Phase 1 Fund from the Old State Road 28 Fund. These are the relinquishment dollars moving over to the LPA Grant Phase 1. The grant that we have with the LPA is reimbursable, which means we, as a city of Tipton, need to spend those dollars first and then ask for reimbursement. This helps fund that fund where the dollars will get distributed from.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-06.
Second.
Motion by Ken, seconded by Nate. All those in favor of approving resolution 2024-06 signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The second resolution, 2024-07, is a resolution declaring the fire department's vehicle as surplus and authorizing it for sale through a listing agent. This is the former fire engine that was on loan to Madison Township. We now have that back. And so we're moving through the process to sell that piece of equipment. To do that, we need to identify it as surplus before we can do so.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-07.
Second. Yeah.
Motion by Nate, seconded by Tim. All those in favor of approving resolution 2024-07, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next on our list, ordinance 2024-02, ordinance annexing territory to the city of Tipton. This is the DeLong 2 super voluntary annexation. This is for the second and final reading.
I saw in the TMU minutes, there was talk about extending the sewer and water. So I know Dan DeLong would have 2 years to request water or sewer. And I think the city would have to oblige that. Do we know, is that capacity big enough to sustain commercial or multi-tenant housing down there?
Yeah, at the moment, we do have plenty of capacities both in the water and sewer. Yes. And then they're, as you mentioned, working to scope both of those projects. The water is going to be easier to get to the site, and then sanitary, there's a couple options I think TMU is working on to service the area.
Yeah, they have to go under the highway.
Correct, for the water, yep.
Okay.
Sanitary, I think, stops at the senior apartments. So it's figuring out, do they go nearest the road or do they go behind the residential areas? Those are the things we're trying to scope.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-02, second and final.
Second.
We have a motion by Nate, seconded by Tim. All those in favor of ordinance 2024-02, please signify by stating aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Next is ordinance 2024-03, an ordinance to vacate a public way in the city of Tipton. And this is for the street department alleys. As we discussed in our last meeting, this is for the second and final reading.
Make the motion to approve ordinance 2024-03.
Second.
Motion by Rich, seconded by Ken. All those in favor of approving ordinance 2024-03 on second and final reading, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. And our last ordinance for tonight, ordinance 2024-04, an ordinance adopting the Tipton Municipal Swimming Pool admission fees. This is first reading.
I make a motion that we accept ordinance 2024-03, or 4, I'm sorry,
First reading.
first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Tim, seconded by Rich.
I couldn't find my rates from last year. Are these the same as last year? I think he made some adjustments on the,
He made some adjustments.
On the-
Going up a dollar.
Mhm.
The The general mission stayed the same, the night swim stayed the same, the group admission for groups 10 and up is the same. The pool passes, he kind of got rid of some that included it all in one. Because he had a pool pass, then he had a pool pass plus, and he kind of combined it.
Mm-hmm.
And the single member went up, the additional member went down. But the other benefits to that was the concession refill was 50 cents. They took away the free swim lesson pass and the 10% off private party rentals. Included the membership card, which was already there, and express entry. The private parties, they all went up by a dollar amount. And then he also on the private parties included the splash pad
$50.
as a part of the private rental, but you could do that for $50 if you, additional $50 for them. And this was recommended by the park board.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more questions? All those in favor of approving ordinance 2024-04 on first reading, please signify by stating aye.
All right.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is claims.
I'll try to do Mr. Ripley's job. I make that motion that we approve the claims 175904 to 176221 in the amount of $4,369,663.28.
You have another one, Tim.
Tim,
Tim and Rich, you both have another one.
there's a revised.
There's a revised, it was in your box.
Oh,
Let
okay,
me go
that's
get it
why.
real quick.
Don't say I'm lost.
Different number, that's
Oh.
why I asked.
Sorry. You guys picked it up on Friday. and
That's
we
a
had
different number, that's why I was like, wait.
There was addition of two pieces of equipment from the golf course. Looks like for a greens mower, an aerator, a second greens mower, and a utility cart. All part of their capital improvement plan for this year.
the last two plans is what was added.
Thank you.
And these numbers look different.
Just to remember, when you guys come in, you might just go check your box to make sure nothing was
Okay.
added after.
We can do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So again, the only two additional are the two from the golf course for their capital items.
Okay, I'll second.
We have a motion by Ken, seconded by Tim. All those in favor of approving claims, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstained? Nathan abstained. We are now at petitions, comments, and memorials. Public comment. Mr. Bowman?
Good evening. Candy wants to talk to my wife because enforcement was what she wanted to talk about tonight. 200 or Cemetery Road, or whatever you want to call that road,
Yeah.
it has about 6 different names. I don't know if anybody knows this because I didn't. The speed limit's 45 there. So you're doing 40 coming east on 28. You can speed up to 45 until you hit the golf course four-way, and then you're back down to 35.
Really?
So everybody speeds up or just doesn't slow down coming off 28 and goes through there. So two things. One, enforcement. Trucks are coming through. Everybody's speeding. I got flipped off twice this weekend coming back from Needler's and Tractor Supply because I wasn't going over 30 coming out of town, and when I sped up to 40, still wasn't fast enough. Secondly, I think that speed limit may need looked into.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to go 40, 45, back down to 35 there in half a mile, give or take. So just a couple ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bowman.
Just so you're at ease, I get the same thing and I enjoy it.
I wave. I wave back.
Just being honest here.
I'm just a friendly tip and wave.
Always wanted to be number one.
I just have a couple things real quick. Okay, we were talking about the tree committee and I don't understand why they aren't more closely working with the park board. I don't know if that's ever come up before in the past. I'd just like someone to think about that.
Yep.
Okay, and then talking about trees, the last tree on this parking lot has a big gully under it, and it's gonna kill the tree. So, it's the very last one
Yep.
behind me. I do wanna say a couple things. Monday was great, and I wanna take a minute to, give some appreciation to Waters. They had many of their elderly people out there watching it.
Yep.
And it was just great to see it. They were so excited. And then I want to thank members of the community because they have posted so many cool pictures.
Yep.
I have a quick question. I think I'll ask you this after. It's about
Okay.
pool admission. I think I'll ask you afterwards.
Okay.
Talking about out-of-towners. My brother was in from Chicago, and I could not count how many out-of-state cars were at the shack for lunch. But as soon as it was 1:00, those people were out of there and they were over there. So, and that was it. Thank you.
Thanks, Roberta.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I did have one thing, just so we're transparent and it's not blindsiding anybody. I've talked to Keegan about this and got his input. I want the council to be aware that it's a goal of mine. It's probably long overdue. Currently, all of our banking is done with BMO. We have not shopped the rates since I've been on the council. It's something I think we should consider. I've looked at some RFPs from other communities. But before we do anything, the first person we should probably consult is Tammy. Because I think
You
whoever we go with is gonna have to provide support service for her office. And that needs to be included in any RFP. So I'm not quite sure who the bank would be, but if they can't provide us with those services as we transition, they would be low on my list. So number one would be to be good fiscal stewards.
Absolutely.
Can we get more money out for our interest rate? And if we can, what services, even if they're ancillary or they're part of a community development, can we get? So, something I've been thinking about, obviously we don't need to talk about it tonight, but I've got some RFPs I'll shoot to the council, just so you can look at them, think about it, and then I'll definitely meet with Tammy and Keegan to see what kind of things they would want. if we
Well, I
did
would
that.
have thought that you would have mentioned that to me already, so we could have.
I'm not asking for any,
The
Any
only
action
thing is
today?
that I mean, I think you would want to keep a local bank because if not, we have to go and make
100%.
deposits every day by State Board of Accounts.
1,000%.
So, and then, there's a lot of, you can't just go and shop it every year.
No, we
Because
would want a long-term agreement.
You've got all these checks that are pre-printed
Yeah.
and all this stuff and that's a lot of work.
I agree. I'm not saying,
And it'd be a long term, like you said.
Well, what do you determine on?
that there's $0 it costs really to put out an RFP and us get information. Now, if a bank says, you know what, we can give you an extra 10 grand a year, that would be something where I'd say, you know what, that might not be worth the headache or the cost of all these things Tammy's talking about. But if a bank said, we can get this interest rate, which will net you an extra 150 grand a year, this city cannot bulk at 150 grand a year.
Right.
That is several police officers, firefighters, street workers, but we don't know if we don't ask. So I think we need to work internally first and then put out an RFP to see, and again, maybe we get nothing out of it. But I don't know when the last time it's been done.
Yeah, it
Anything else?
doesn't hurt to try. Just to
I don't
see.
think so.
If there's nothing else, I'd accept a motion to adjourn. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. When you were going to claim, I'm sorry, you started to say the dollar amount that is in the budget before, and then the 369 again, but the piece of paper that you did put the budget back.
What I gave was the correct number.
It was $4,369,663.28.
And then I had a question about something the mayor said about, there's gonna be a final meeting on April 24th. You mentioned that right after you talked about the baseball project, but I didn't hear that project.
Yeah, so that's our feasibility study related to the public safety building. You're welcome.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Nate, second by Ken. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Should I have copies of these ordinances and resolutions in my packet?
The ones that, these were from the previous meeting.
Okay,
So unless
I
there's a
have them.
change, Tammy won't. print them.
yeah, I have them.